Hilary Scott. I'm originally from Guelph, Ontario, where I grew up. And then I moved to a little island in the Bahamas that unfortunately has become very famous right now because it's Hopetown, Elbow Key, Abaco, right across from Marsh Harbor. And as we all know, September 1st, it was decimated. And I spent my whole life since I was born going back and forth there. And I lived there permanently when I was 24 for 15 years, married to a Bahamian and the father of my two beautiful sons. And yeah, so then after Bahamas, our marriage didn't work out. So I moved to Nova Scotia with my two little boys, sight unseen. I'd never been here before. I picked well, there's a long, probably boring story to that, but I ended up coming to Nova Scotia and living in Lunenburg with my boys and getting them back and forth a number of times to see their dad throughout the years. They would spend summers and everything. And now I'm in Mahone Bay. And I work as a grief and loss support. I have a private office that I've done for 4 years now, and I call it Healing the Loss. And I also am certified Peer Support Canada, and so I work on the mental health unit as a peer supporter. And due to the many losses in my life, when I support people, it is as a peer because I understand their experiences. I'm not coming from a power differential of any kind. That is one of the things that attracted me to the grief recovery method and this thing, the grief recovery is like 30 years old. It's an evidence-based thing. It's not new. It's just I never knew anything about it. Most people don't unless they need it at the time. So what I really appreciated about it was that grief we normally think is about the big things, the death of a loved one, or whatever, or divorce. Grief can be surrounding anything, moving, traumatic, whatever, abuse, hurricanes or disasters, or the small things, the job you didn't get. It can be financial. It can be one of my clients, the first one, won the lottery. We'd think, yay, but she lost all her friends. So there's grief around this, but it's every acknowledged little loss or unacknowledged little loss kind of sticks with you. And one of the examples that I use, and it's not mine, but it's about the little girl who has her birthday party, and her entire class shows up, but her best friend is not there. And her mom is all, come on, get to your birthday party. All these people are here. They're all here for you. And she's crying because her best friend's not there. So a kindly uncle comes up and says, oh, I'm so sorry, your best friend's not here. That must feel really bad. And she is like, yeah, it does. And she gets to cry a little bit. She sniffles, pulls herself up, and gets to go play and have a good time. It's all about the acknowledgement. We don't have to compare losses because certainly we look at child loss as a huge thing. And so this is why I don't lead with this ever, because your loss is as big as my loss. It's 100% to you. If a client has their dog that has passed away, that is a massive loss to this person. They feel it at 100% and it needs to be honored. Because if you just tell somebody, just get another dog, so that's a replace the loss, or there's plenty of fish in the sea, or all the different myths that we have, time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. It may soften them, but it doesn't heal anything, actually. So you have to take some steps. And the steps meaning, if you don't have a group around you or friends around you that will acknowledge it, the very least, acknowledge that your loss is valid to yourself. Give yourself the break. Give yourself the permission to feel this loss, to feel the pain, to acknowledge it, learn from it, do whatever you take from it, not whatever somebody else tells you to take. There. I will always be there. I will always carry the fact that Ty's not here. And I am emotional today because of the enormous grief of my family in the Bahamas and the fact that it's coming up to Tyler's anniversary and that he should be here. It's a bit different with my parents and my sister because they were very, very ill. And unless they could be here and be healthy and happy and vibrant, I would not wish them here as much as I miss them so much. There's other losses that I have grown from and learned from, as we do. You know, you lose a job, you think it's oh my God, what am I gonna, and then perhaps there was something better waiting for you down. But you need to absorb that. Also, the way, and I'm off course a little bit, I'll get back to it, but the way that we deal with our losses is how we've been conditioned to deal with them. What we've been being told by our parents, by society, by this, that, and the other. Right now, being positive at all costs, and I mean it's a cost to be positive at all times, is the big deal. The happy emoticon is the only emoticon. And people come and say, oh, you should be grateful you have another child. Ugh. There's so many things that people say that are so dismissive to people, that are so, you know, of course I'm grateful I have another child. I can be sad at the same time. You can carry both at the same time. When people say to others, oh, your father lived such a long life. Well, that's intellectually true, but emotionally not helpful at all. You know, we can carry gratitude and positivity and laughter along with sadness and emotions. We're human, we're complicated, we can do that. So when you asking me, when I'm with people, how do I think you're saying, how do I protect myself, or how do I, for me, it is such an authentic, open kind of discussion that we're having. When I'm talking with somebody, they're telling me about their loss. When it's appropriate, I will talk a little bit about something that I've experienced as well. And there's no judgment. There's no feeling like, oh, without bad luck, you'd have no luck at all, which I've actually been told. And, you know, it's just such a loving, peaceful place. And that's with all my peers, whether they've had some mental health challenges, which can be any and all of us, whether there's been grief, whether there's been, I rarely have people in my office that have only suffered the death of a loved one. In fact, the clients that I have right now, none of them have suffered the death of a loved one. It's been something else. Or it's been a combination of. Perhaps it was child abuse when they were younger that they had no control over. And then that's how they react to certain things with anger, and they get triggered when there's no control. Perhaps there's the anticipated grief of a loved one who is dying with Alzheimer's or cancer or something like that. And the identity that they are now as a huge caretaker, that is their world. And they've had to go from being this wonderful couple to now somebody's sick, so they're a caretaker. And then what happens afterwards, right? So it's a complicated process. And as a society, it's a complicated process, but it's a natural process. And everybody has loss. Everybody has grief in their life. It's constant. We can't get away from it. It's how you handle it with resilience, the ability to bounce, the ability to take, I hate to say gifts. I hate to say that. but the ability to incorporate it and be kind to yourself. My self-care involves when I'm exhausted, uh, I know that my body needs me to lie down and watch something stupid on TV. And I need rest. And I don't should on myself for things like that. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. Maybe so. I can't do it anyway. I'm too tired. So just lie down, give yourself the room. I learned a great big lesson, and hopefully the people that I was talking to learned this as well. I was asked to give a talk to the palliative volunteers, and that was last month, but it had to be postponed to last week. I should have postponed it because I was a swirling mess, unbeknownst to myself, really, about everything that was happening in the Bahamas, the time of year, everything like that. And for me, it brings up all my losses, just like everybody else. So one loss does not stand alone. It's all your losses rolled up and how you learn how to handle all of those losses, right? And so even though I know how to do this, I was still, up all night worrying about my friends and my family and what's long-term plans and all this kind of stuff. So when I gave the talk to palliative, it was awful. I was impatient. I was, this is the way you do it. Anyway, I have since apologized, and they understand, and they got to see grief in action. When sometimes grief looks like impatience and anger and knowing everything when you don't. And so, yeah, it's about authenticity, validation, and acknowledgement. That's it. What I say when people say move on, get over it, on and on, I think that's dumb. I think it's a disservice, because if you have brushed your teeth and gotten dressed, you're getting on with life, right? So when I'm talking to people and they're first experiencing their massive grief, and I remember this with me too, because it is different. The grief that I felt for my parents and the exhaustion and the fog and all that, it was there. But with my son, it was times a million, right? And so it's like holding a boulder, huge, massive boulder grief. And you can't see through it, you can't see around it, and you can't put it down. And as time goes on, and the days come that you're able to maybe put it in a backpack and carry it that way, and then some days it comes back and it is your identity, you can't see around it. Some days you can put it in a backpack, some days it's absorbed and assimilated. But for my purposes, moving on, it's not that, it's carrying with. I will carry my loved ones and my experiences and everything with me always. Because to me, whatever religion, whatever you believe in, or if you don't believe in any other higher power, the loss of a loved one or the experience is sacred to you in your life. The loss of my son is huge, and all of the losses that I've had, and in some cases, maybe more than other people, maybe less, who knows? I feel that I operate at about a 50% loss, 50% capacity for everything else. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because it represents how much love I have. It represents how much life I've been through. And I'm not ashamed of it. And moving on is ridiculous unless you are in a corner babbling, drooling, and all that. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that either, unless you stay there, right? And then everybody moves on and that's the sad part. Life goes on like they weren't here, and that's a grief. And just to acknowledge this and have this conversation and everybody be able to go, yeah, I get you, I understand, been there, you know, and not give people prescriptions or advice of how they should do it. I had a wonderful person come up to me and she was talking about something that was really hard at the time. And she said, oh, but I'm grateful somebody has it worse. Somebody always has it worse. Somebody always has it better. Don't minimize your experience. Don't minimize it. Acknowledge it. This is hard. This sucks. And right now, it doesn't mean you're going to live there being a negative, grumpy, cynical person for the rest of your life. You're just acknowledging something that is happening right now as part of the human experience. We're so afraid as a society to say, are you okay? Because we're afraid people are going to tell us how they feel. Oh my God, right? Why can't we just companion that, knowing that this person is not like that every day? And the people that are angry and uptight have probably never been heard and just need to have their voice matter and their feelings matter. And it's a lifetime of how their parents taught them and society taught them and how their grandparents taught them, rural versus city. It's complicated. Let's just be nice. We're human beings on this ball. We've got enough anxiety going on just about the planet in general. You know, we start out anxious. Let's be kind to each other and know that we all are having this human experience. After you've had a loss, they show up for the funeral, kindly usually. I'm really adamant about social media. Please don't put anything on social media until the family does or a representative. And if you say, I'm so sorry for your loss on social media, please follow that up with something. Do not ever say at least anything. Just don't say that. And what happens with people that have had the death of a child, is that no one knows what to say because there is nothing to say that could fix this or change it. So instead of coming up and saying, I have no words, and giving them a hug and just letting them be in an appropriate time, please not a grocery store. The problem is that people avoid people, and the one that has suffered this horrible loss feels like she is contagious and that people are going to stay away from her. And grief is the most isolating thing because nobody knows what to say. People want to be around positive people because this is a fast moving, you know, the news cycle changes all the time. We've been there, done that. When the griever, after the funeral, after the casseroles, after everybody goes, is alone. So picture a husband and wife, the husband dies, you know, the family is all around, everything's happening, and here's the wife sitting alone in her house. Her whole identity has changed. Going to the grocery store, trying to buy dinner for one. It's a whole different bag. And people don't realize that. And, you know, they say, it was an Elizabeth Edwards quote about, do not be afraid to mention my child. You will not, obviously I'm paraphrasing, you will not make me sad by mentioning his name and reminding me he is gone. You will be giving me such a great gift by acknowledging that he lived. So talk to the people you care about the memories, bring up anniversaries, even if, like me, they're 6 years down the road. My God, if somebody called me up and said, I'm thinking of you, I know your son died 6 years ago. It's so rare. It's rare, and it's wrong. And even me, who's in this all the time. The people, the friends that you think that are going to support you throughout the whole time, I've lost so many friends. And I've thankfully made new ones. But people don't know what to do. And companioning people and sitting with them and just coming over and not even talking, but just being there, you know? And you have this need when you're in deep grief at the very beginning of needing people but wanting them to go away because you don't know what you need. You need your person back. And also, we do a lot of call me if you need anything. Well, that makes you feel better because you feel like I've covered my bases. But the fact is, the griever doesn't know what they need. They're not going to call you. So just do something. Walk the dog. 6 months later, make sure you put it on your calendar to call them to see how they are. Take them to a movie. Engage. Let them be part of, always ask them to go, understanding if they don't want to go. Always give them an out. If they want to drive, understand that maybe social situations, they're going to dip their toe in the water, but they need to leave. And it's really not that hard, but we haven't mastered it at all. And we have a different thing. The Mexicans have the Day of the Dead, and they have that day of celebrating their lost loved ones and the memories and everything. And we would do well as a society to adopt traditions like that, because we've lost community, as we know, and with our churches changing and everybody being far away, we're on video more than we are in person. We text more than we call. So it's becoming more challenging rather than less to have that sense of not being isolated. So it's something we need to work on as this world gets weirder and smaller. Sometimes just acknowledging and saying, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? Or how are you doing today? Instead of saying, how are you doing, which is very broad. You get a lot of conversations in the grocery store. You see a lot of empty carts in the grocery store because people can't take that. Try and be less superficial than that, and go for coffee or do what you can. Don't assume other people are doing it because they're not. And this, loneliness is one of the biggest epidemics we have, and it turns into all kinds of health issues. So you yourself, whoever is listening, will go through loss. And we all do of one kind or another. And so be the person that is okay with companioning somebody and and saying their person's name. They'll let you know if they don't want to talk about it. And they'll most of the time they'll go, oh, thank God you remembered, or whatever. Or following up if they lost a job, or, all these kind of different things that are such human, normal, natural, grief inducing events.